Welcome, everybody, to the October meeting of the nonprofit plant-based nutrition organization of Wisconsin, or PBNOW. I'm your host, Terry Lynch. The mission of our nonprofit group is to educate, inspire, and support each other on an evidence-backed, whole food, plant-based nutritional path for health and improved quality of life. Our group is open to everyone, those plant-based and those just curious about it. It's meant to be a non-judgmental place for you to come get information, inspiration, and support. If you'd like more information about our group, our upcoming meeting dates, speakers, and resources, or to check out videos of our past meetings, just Google us at pbnow.org. As we do each time, can I see a show of hands or a Zoom icon thumbs up of those who are currently living a plant-based lifestyle? There we go. Popping up. At this point, that's about, I guess, a third. No, that's great. As we mentioned at the beginning of each meeting, the evidence for the benefits of plant-based nutrition in improving health and quality of life for people of all ages is published in non-biased medical research is quite striking. Whether it's improving health through increased energy, weight loss, preventing, slowing, stopping, and reversing problems like allergies, digestive problems, diabetes, heart disease, and early dementia, or increasing our quality of life by helping us feel better quickly, strengthening our immune system, increasing endurance, improving athletic performance, speeding recovery from exercise, reducing joint pain, clearing thinking, or reducing the physical, emotional, and financial side effects of the illnesses, drugs, and procedures often recommended to treat the conditions plant-based nutrition can help us avoid. The research shows our bodies do a wonderful job of healing themselves if we stop damaging them daily with poor nutrition and start giving them the nutrition they need. It's truly remarkable. Now, let me tell you what's in store for you tonight. First, we'll hear from our PBNOW Medical Director, Dr. Josh Lieberman. Next, we'll see one or two videos, depending on the time we have. And following the videos, our featured speaker, Dr. Stephan Esser, will begin, and he'll follow his talk with Q&A. Our program should end, as it usually does, at 7:30. As a reminder, we have meetings every month, usually the second Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock Central Time. Next month, we'll hear from cardiologist, author, and researcher, Dr. Elizabeth Clotis, who earned fellowships from both Mayo and Johns Hopkins, and who founded the Preventative Cardiology Clinic in Edina, Minnesota. We'll be posting more information about our upcoming meetings on our website, pbnow.org. If you register on the website, you'll receive email reminders of our events as they approach. Quick technical note, as always, during the meeting, everyone but the speakers will be muted, and we ask that you stay that way to avoid background noise and allow everyone to hear the speakers. During Q&A, we may do some unmuting, but we'll use the chat box there as well. With that being said, I'm just looking for a first speaker here, and I don't see him yet, so let's go to a video first. And hold on for a minute while I do this. And we'll start with a short one here. That you probably have, many of you have seen before, but it's a cute short video.
This is Carl, and this is Joe. Carl and Joe both live in the same city, in the same kind of house, and drive the same car. Carl is an omnivore, and Joe eats a plant-based diet. They eat about the same amount of food every day. But because of his diet, Joe uses 300 gallons of water per day, while Carl uses 4,000. Also because of his diet, Carl uses 8 times more fossil fuels than Joe. And Joe's annual carbon footprint is 1.5 tons, while Carl's is 2.5 tons. Carl's diet means he uses 5 times more land than Joe, and meaty diets like his cause 70% of rainforest destruction. Carl weighs about 30 pounds more than Joe, and Joe's risk for heart disease, diabetes, stroke, and cancer are all significantly lower than Carl's. This means that Carl will die an average of 9.5 years sooner than Joe, while Joe will have spared tens of thousands of animals in his lifetime. Because of his diet, Joe is healthier, kinder to animals and the environment. Be like Joe. Eat a plant-based diet.
I think most of you have seen that before, but I always get a kick out of it. It's only about 2 minutes long. Let's see, I do not see our speaker yet, so let's go to another video here. This is, and I think some of you have seen this before as well, but this is about, well, I'll tell you as we get closer to it here. This is from Dr. Greger.
About a decade ago, the American Heart Association expressed concern that their 2020 target of improving cardiovascular health by 20% by 2020 would not be reached if current trends continued. By 2006, most people were already not smoking and had nearly achieved their goal for exercise, but when it came to healthy diet score, only about 1% got a 4 or 5 out of their 0 to 5 diet quality score, and that's with so-called ideal criteria being like drinking less than 4.5 cups of soda a week. In the last decade, they saw a bump up to like 1% of Americans even reaching this kind of basic criteria. But given their aggressive goal of improving that by 20% by 2020, they hope to turn that 1% into like 1.2%. OK, so how'd we do? Let's look at the 2019 update, and it looks like we've slipped down to as low as 1 in 1,000. You can't even see the green anymore, and American teens got a big fat 0. No wonder, perhaps, that for all mortality-based metrics, the U.S. rank declined like 27th or 28th among 34 industrialized countries. Citizens living in countries with a substantially lower GDP and health expenditures per capita have lower mortality rates than those in the United States. Slovenia beat us by 3 countries, coming in at 24th in life expectancy to our 27th. And more recently, we seem to have slipped to 43rd, even though we spent trillions on healthcare, more than anyone else. What's the leading risk factor for death in the United States? What we eat. The standard American diet is just to die for, literally. Those trillions in healthcare spending aren't addressing the root cause. Look at some of these beautiful lung cancer death curves. It took decades to finally turn the corner, but it's so nice to finally see those drops. When are we going to see the same with diet? Approximately 80% of chronic disease and premature death could be prevented by not smoking, being physically active, and adhering to a healthful dietary pattern. But what exactly is meant by a healthy diet? Unfortunately, what we hear about nutrition in the media is often inconsistent and confusing. There's a pressure within today's competitive journalism market for sensationalism. There may even be a disincentive to prevent the facts in context to sell more magazines. And this paper was written back in 1997, before the lure of clickbait headlines. In fact, about 3/4 of a century ago, it was noted that, unfortunately, the subject of nutrition seems to have a special appeal to the credulous, the social zealot, and, in the commercial field, the unscrupulous, a combination calculated to strike despair in the hearts of the sober objective scientist. The most important healthcare problem we face may be our poor lifestyle choices based on misinformation. It's like the climate change deniers. Healthy dietary advice is overshadowed by critics, diet books, industry interests, and misguided information in the media. Maybe what we need is like an IPCC of nutrition. These days, no single expert, regardless of academic stature or reputation, has the prominence to overcome the obstacles created by confusing media messages and effectively deliver the fundamental principles of healthy living to the public. However, what if there was a global coalition consisting of a variety of nutrition experts who collectively represent the views held by the majority of scientists, physicians, and health practitioners? It could serve as a guiding resource of sound nutrition information for improved health and prevention of disease. Boom! The True Health Initiative was conceived for that very purpose. A nonprofit coalition of hundreds of experts from dozens of countries agreeing to a consensus statement on the fundamentals of healthy living. Check out www.truehealthinitiative.org. Spoiler alert, the healthiest diet is one generally comprised mostly of minimally processed plants.
All right. Let me introduce our first speaker. He is a fellowship-trained cardiologist, past president and current trustee of the Wisconsin chapter of the American College of Cardiology. He's a member of the American College of Cardiology's National Nutrition and Lifestyle Work Group, whose membership includes nationally known physicians such as Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and Dr. Neil Bernard. He's an advocate for the use of plant-based nutrition to help improve heart health, general health, and quality of life, and has seen the benefits of plant-based nutrition in both his personal life and that of his patients. We're fortunate to have him here in Milwaukee and as our PB Now Medical Director. I'm happy to welcome Dr. Josh Liberman. Dr. Liberman?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Sure.
All right. Thanks for bearing with me, Terry. I know I was a little bit late to the call. Thanks for everybody for being here. Looks like there's a big crowd again, so that's great. Unfortunately, fall has set in. Clearly, the last week it's been pretty cold out, but still nice to see some farmers markets still going and being able to get some good veggies, fresh veggies at the farmers markets, which is nice. And fall is kind of nice for that. The last couple of weeks, or the last couple of meetings, I should say, you may have noticed a theme. I'm not really talking necessarily as much about the research that's out there that shows the benefits of a plant-based diet. There's more and more research, coming out all the time that there is, but more lately I've been speaking just about kind of the health effects from a community-based standpoint of poor nutrition. And the struggles that some of our communities are facing. Last time I talked about just the scourge of hypertension and the distance and the concept of food deserts and how far you are away from a grocery store can really lead to increased rates of hypertension and kidney disease and diabetes. Today, I guess I wanted to talk about, there was an article in actually the Journal Sentinel recently talking about food insecurity and what the population harms are from widespread food insecurity in our communities and the costs to our healthcare systems. So it's been well known that For example, in low-income families, admissions for diabetes complications go up at the end of the month, right? So people get their Social Security, their disability checks, their food stamp allotments at the beginning of the month, and when they run out of those, they're forced to buy cheap, easily accessible, convenient food, which is not good for lots of medical conditions, but specifically for diabetes. And so diabetes can tend to get uncontrolled towards the end of the month, and there's a significant increase in admissions to the hospital. In one study, it was between 25 and 30% increase in admissions to the hospital in the last week of the month for patients with diabetes and low income. And there was no effect on admissions for patients who are in higher socioeconomic class. So it's not something about the weather or something like that at the end of the month. But there was a fairly recent study that actually tried to look at the numbers, and basically more than 1 in 10 households in the country. So that's like 34 million people, 1 in 10 households suffer from food insecurity at some point during the last year, 2021, which is just a frightening number to me. 500,000 children. I mean, just so many people are affected by this. People having to skip meals, people having to cut back purposefully, and it's thought that it increases the financial burden to our healthcare system is in the billions of dollars for food insecurity in terms of the medical problems that this can lead to. In Wisconsin alone, it was estimated, and this is why it was in the Journal Sentinel, it was in Wisconsin alone, it was estimated to be almost $700 million in additional healthcare costs added to the healthcare system in our state alone. So it's a big deal. There's a lot of organizations that are out there to try to help with food insecurity. And the fortunate news is that there are actually some institutions that are trying to focus on healthy foods, not just getting food to people, right? Not just getting any old food like, sugary cereals or things like that, but they're actually focusing on trying to get as much healthy food as possible. I know that Feeding America, which is a great, local institution on Fond du Lac down on the near west side, they have an upcoming peanut butter challenge coming up to try to get as many donations of jars of peanut butter as possible, basically to distribute, because it's great for our kids. It's an easy snack. It can be very healthy, of course. If you're buying Skippy and Jif and that kind of stuff, it's not necessarily healthy. But if you can get peanut butter, it's an easy snack. Kids can prepare sandwiches by themselves. They don't need like adult supervision, or they don't need to turn on a stove or microwave or anything like that. But I'd strongly recommend, if you can, to consider getting involved in an initiative like that. Focusing on supporting healthy plant-based foods can be done. There's a lot more farmers markets that are accepting SNAP or WIC or coupons like that, food stamp kind of coupons, which is, I think, wonderful. The farmers get reimbursed from the state. The Fondy Food Market is one where they make a real concerted effort to make sure that they're getting vendors that will accept WIC and SNAP and those kinds of things. So, there are ways to do it. There are ways to promote plant-based eating that will be healthy for all the members of our community and help, hopefully alleviate the concerns of food insecurity. So that's my piece for tonight. Appreciate you guys all being involved and part of this community.
Now we'll go to our featured speaker tonight, right on time. Our featured speaker is a physician and author specializing in sports medicine and lifestyle modification. He did his residency at Harvard Medical School and a sports medicine fellowship at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. Prior to his career in medicine, he was a competitive tennis player, achieving the ranking of #1 in the US in men's open doubles in 2002. He is a 4th-generation vegan who has witnessed the effects of plant-based living in his personal, family, sports, and professional life. He will speak to us tonight about both his personal and clinical experiences and the science of orthopedic health. I'm excited to welcome our featured speaker tonight, Dr. Stephan Esser.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Terry, for that very nice introduction. And thank you for everybody taking time out of your busy schedules to be here tonight. I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to start with our share screen so you can see. And there we are. Everybody sees that. Terry, you're seeing that well?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, tonight we're going to talk about the effects of nutrition on your orthopedic health, on performance. Perhaps we can talk about potential as well. I'm going to end the evening with giving you some very tangible changes, very tangible things that you can do to achieve better health. As Terry suggested, I grew up in a very unique place. This was where I grew up at Esser's Ranch. My grandfather for 65 years ran a health ranch in South Florida. 30 people at a time would come and go on therapeutic water fasts and juice detoxes and exercise, sunbathing, etc., using the powers of nature to heal their body. So I grew up watching people on a daily basis get well, get vital, achieve what they thought wasn't even possible. These are people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s who thought those glory days were gone. And so to this day, I continue to sit on my grandfather's shoulders, certainly, in what I do in this area of medicine. As Terry suggested, I went to USF for med school, Harvard, Mayo, have been on faculty for multiple places over the last number of years, team physician for a large Division I university, so on and so forth. So a lot of fun opportunities to see a lot of people and to see how powerfully nutrition can play a part. I want to use this example of this delightful gentleman. He was 81 years of age. He came to see me with knee pain, back pain, and leg swelling, and high blood pressure, and all these problems. And I said to him, I said, hey, I want 4 weeks of your life. Go home and do my program, my healthy living program that I have for 4 weeks, and let's see what happens to your body. He went home and pretty radically, he lost about 30 pounds in 4 weeks. He got off his blood pressure medicines, his leg swelling went away, his knee pain resolved. And in fact, he went back to the position on the golf course, going out on the cart and, et cetera, that he was no longer able to do when he first saw me because of his chronic pain. So he got rid of medicines, he improved his quality of life and enhanced his function. He discovered the man that he wanted to be. So these radical changes were what occurred for him when he made radical changes resulting in these sort of things for him. And so this is what you and I are looking for, isn't it? That we have more life to our years, and perhaps we'll get more years to our life too. We want that vitality, we want that energy. Tonight we're going to talk about this intersection between nutrition and orthopedics, some of the mechanisms by which it works, and set some goals for you at the end of all of this. Quite simply, definition-wise, orthopedics. It's the field of medicine involved with problems with your bones, your muscles, your tendons, and your ligaments. And likely you're familiar with nutrition, right? This idea that what we eat influences our risk of diseases and our function and performance. Performance, of course, is your ability to accomplish a task, an action, or something. And your potential, well, we all have a lot. And the question is, are we maximizing that, whatever age that we're at? Let's take you to mini medical school for a moment. You're amazing. People forget this. They beat themselves up. They talk negative about themselves, but they forget just how amazing they are. 37 trillion cells. Are you kidding me? 600 plus muscles, all this skin and blood vessels woven together. It's good every once in a while to stop in the midst of your busy day and chaotic world and just be in awe of you and grateful for you. Sure, you get angry about the wrinkles or the gray hair or the bum knee or the whatever, or the indigestion, but how often do you just stop and say, thank you, I'm blessed. Now, the neat thing that I want you to take away from this slide is, of course, this last line. You're not the same person you were a day ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. That's the reality. So every day you are modifying, you are changing who you are by the behaviors that you do. So sure, you may not be 22 again, but you can be healthier than you are today in 6 months or in a year, regardless of your present age. All of this amazingness woven together under your skin. Perhaps undoubtedly my favorite class in medical school was anatomy, right? Getting to go into our silent teachers dissecting out bodies and seeing the intricacies of the body beneath the skin. But every one of the cells in you requires a lot. Hydration, or 70% water, right? Nutrition, oxygen, the ability to remove toxins at the cellular level. All of this is required. And the one behavior that is the most universal, the most modifiable, and arguably the most powerful to influence this cellular health is the food that you're eating, is the nutrition that you're giving to your body. Why? Well, because every cell requires nutrition and oxygen. And the food you eat, the exercise you get, the sleep you engage, and the thoughts you think, and the toxins you're exposed to all alter this paradigm, the nutrition, the oxygen, and influence your change. In fact, these behaviors are the greatest predictors of your health. David Katz, one of the former director of preventive medicine at Yale, used to say the nice phrase that he said, your fingers, feet, and forks are the master levers of your health destiny. The master levers of your health destiny. What did you do with your fingers, feet, and forks today? It's interesting. And I made sure today that I got multiple episodes of exercise. I made sure that I was bathing my cells, right, with berries and greens and different foods to reduce inflammation. Which brings us to this nutrition orthopedics intersection. You know, we are a rapidly aging population, yet most of us want to stay active. But in the same scope, we are the most obese ever, the most obese society ever on earth. 1 in 3 has high blood pressure, 1 in 3 has high cholesterol, and 1 in 9 has type 2 diabetes. These numbers are not good. Your goal should be to reduce, prevent, manage pain or injury, facilitate healing, and to maximize your general health. At the heart of this paradigm is inflammation and perfusion, which we're going to talk about. Truly, perfusion rules. What is perfusion? Perfusion is blood flow, right? The blood flowing to every single cell in your body that requires that nutrition and that oxygen and that carrying away of toxins. So you require this for existence. The better the blood flow, the better the function, the more the performance, the slower the aging, the better the healing, the faster the recovery. It is blood flow that facilitates all of this. Now, interestingly enough, it is food that controls the flow of blood to our bodies. We're going to talk about this together. You see, the heart pumps out via arteries, and the arteries then turn to veins, and the veins come back to the heart, and then out to the lungs, and then back to the heart, and then out via arteries. And this artery is made of smooth muscle cells with a very fine lining in the middle called endothelium. And of course, these endothelial cells are alive and constantly with different reactions going on. One of the things we commonly talk about with regards to these endothelia is the subject of atherosclerosis, this, quote, hardening of the arteries, this buildup of fatty deposits along the lining of the blood vessels. So some little tiny injury to the endothelial wall, whether due to some high blood pressure or excessive salt consumption, something damages that lining, and now the cholesterol and fat deposit themselves in the lining of the artery. And over time, that can build up and cause problems, or it can tear, and then a clot forms and the person has a heart attack, which of course, every 37 seconds, someone in America dies of a heart attack. Now, from an orthopedic perspective, blood flow is required for the performance of the muscles to do their jobs, for bones to work efficiently, and for wounds to heal, and to prevent actually the degenerative processes that occur in discs, cartilage layers, meniscus, and labrum, common soft tissue structures that help to stabilize and support your joints. As it turns out, when you consume a high-fat, high-cholesterol meal, like is commonly eaten in America, this impairs blood flow. Over time, we get fatty streaks. This impairs blood flow to your tissues, reduces oxygen, and thus alters the pH, increasing acidity in the joint structures. This is a very powerful picture here. These photos are of people's plasma, the water content from people's blood. I drew both of these, all 4 of them, and I also took these photos. On the right of each photo is a person who has eaten a plant-based meal. On the left of each photo is a person who's eating a meat-based meal, one a fish sandwich and one a Cuban sandwich. And so what we see here is lipemia, tiny fatty particles and cholesterol particles circulating through the bloodstream for about 4 hours after each meal when you eat this high-fat, high-cholesterol meal. When you eat that plant-based meal, you leave this plasma clear and clean, circulating through your blood, wide open, kind of like whether you have well water or whether you have purified water running through your house. You want the purified water, and every meal affects it This is a great example of that. This woman, look at her plasma. It's absolutely disgusting. It looks like she's got pus here. But what she'd had was this meal prior to coming in. She had a Cobb salad at Capitol Grill, and she called it a salad, and that's what it's marketed as. Yet when you break down the actual of what's in it, it is 65% of all calories from fat. Now, don't think that this, oh, I would never eat that, Dr. Esser. But would you eat a large salad and put 2 or 3 tablespoons of olive oil on it? Because if you would, you just made that salad 50% calories from pure fat. Very important you're aware of this. So this is what the plasma should look like. This is what hers looked like. You have to ask yourself the question after every meal, what does my plasma look like right now? See, as it turns out, a single high-fat meal can impair blood flow by 50% for 4 hours. Wow. These are studies at Johns Hopkins. But when you eat plant-based foods, you do the exact opposite. You dilate your blood vessels. You improve blood flow. So when the person eats the apples and the spinach or the beetroot juice or the like, they are dilating their blood vessels, opening them up. Right? It's amazing when you stop and think about that. The food that you're eating is actually at the cellular level altering the function of your cells. Truly, quote unquote, food is information. So this is an example on the left of some of the meals in my 4-week virtual program, which I offer every month, where people get daily emails and videos like this with me twice a week, and then menu plans, etc. This is sort of food that we want to be consuming, these bright, colorful, rich, micronutrient-dense foods, not this sort of stuff on the right, of course, and this, etc. These are the foods that are prematurely aging and prematurely killing and premature degenerating Americans. You see, what you eat predicts what's in your blood, and how thick the blood is and how much pressure is in the vessel. All of that is influenced by what you eat. So if you're on blood pressure medicines or on blood sugar medicines or struggling with one of the lifestyle diseases, the diseases of kings and queens, you have to ask the question is, can you change this? And the answer is yes, you can, by making meaningful and big enough changes. You see, when you consume these nitrate-rich foods, these deep greens, deep purples, deep blues, etc., this nitrate is absorbed into your bloodstream where it is converted to nitric oxide, which of course dilates the blood vessels. Now, this can occur with the bacteria in your mouth that assist with this process. So the longer you chew those green vegetables and those berries in your mouth, the better. And it can also occur in the bloodstream itself after digestion. But the more this nitrous oxide is present, the more the teeny tiny little blood cell vessels that feed your nerves, that feed your skin, can all open up and improve the health of your cells. That's what we're looking for, right? It's a little simple study, eating apples, eating spinach, and look at this, nitric oxide goes up, blood pressure drops. Just what we're looking for. So these flavonoids, you saw that term I used there, they're these little things that in the plant are there for color and aroma and protect them from the sun, etc. But in you and in me, they act as antioxidants. They reduce inflammation. They dilate our blood vessels. They're antibacterial. They modulate your immune system. All of these good things that you and I want. Here are those flavones, right? The anthocyanidins, the deep colorful things, the isoflavones here, the flavonols, the flavanones. So when you look at this, you should be saying, I should get some of each of these several times a day. So several times a day, right? Okay, you're going to make the big salad. Well, can you chop some onions on it? You're having a snack. Okay, grab a handful of berries. Get some of those frozen berries, throw them in the blender, blend them up with a little bit of parsley and a banana and drink it. These micronutrient dense foods, this is what we're looking to bathe our cells with at every level. Right? These different fun names like quercetin, hesperidin, catechins in green tea, these in different soy, right? The genistein and adenosine, et cetera. These are what we're looking for. And here, look at these deep colors. You want to look at these and then eat them, right? So finding your fridge, when I open that fridge now, I have a very different goal than maybe 10 years ago, right? Where I'd open the fridge and be like, what do I like in here? Now I open up that fridge and I go, what will like me? What will love me best? A little bit of a different perspective. So you're wanting to fill your mouth up with foods that will love you back, that will enhance your health. Because as you consume more plant-based foods, studies show us that, for example, a vegetarian diet, right, has almost 4 times greater the amount of nitrate-rich foods per day as compared to a standard American diet, which then, of course, increases the presence of nitric oxide and has these powerful effects. So how does perfusion, though, how does blood flow affect your orthopedic health? Let's look. Studies show us that if you have impaired blood flow to the arteries around the spine, you're more likely to have chronic back pain and early spinal degeneration. You see, the aorta is the largest blood vessel in the body. It runs along the front of the spine, and little tiny feeder vessels come out and feed the facet joints, the discs, and the nerves. And if you block them up, you can see here, this white line right here on the front, this white line right here. Look at this right here. See this white line here, this white line here? These are what are called aortic calcifications. Now, if you get an x-ray of your low back, if you see these, it tells you, number one, you have heart disease. Of course, if you've eaten a standard American diet for a period of time, you have heart disease. But this is a very pictorial, very tangible way to look. Sadly, most physicians and even radiologists don't even comment on aortic calcifications because they are so common. Fortunately, in my clinics, when I get an x-ray, I see it with the patient, I look at it, and we immediately look at this and say, there's a problem. Because if you are getting these white areas, that means calcium and cholesterol are blocking up the lining of the aorta. Well, what's wrong with that? We'll take a look. If this aorta is getting blocked up, what does that mean? The feeder vessels are getting blocked up. And when they get blocked up, now you get premature degeneration of your discs, you get increased rates of chronic back pain, and you get earlier facet arthropathy or arthritis. What's the good news? If you eat the right foods, you can dilate these blood vessels. And that's why people who do my program for 4 weeks on average have a 50 to 90% reduction in back pain. It's pretty cool because they get better blood flow. What about osteoporosis? We know this as a loss of the density of the bone over time. And many people only speak about hormones and exercise, which are very important to talk about. But as it turns out, if you have impaired perfusion, if you have on an x-ray aortic calcifications, you have a much higher rate of osteoporosis. Why? Well, look at this pretty picture. All these are little tiny blood vessels into this bone. So if you clog up these tiny little hair-thin vessels, some of them, the bone just dies off. The inner portion of this bone dies off and you lose that bone density and you develop osteoporosis. What about tendons? Well, tendons are made up of all of these different subtendons, if you will, all wrapped one in the next and the next and the next, with blood vessels you can see perforating throughout that tendon, feeding it. And studies show us that if you have elevated cholesterol, you have a higher rate of rotator cuff tear, higher rate of Achilles tendon tear, and higher rates of re-tear and failure of surgery if you're elevated cholesterol. Wow, who knew? So every person who's going in for their orthopedic surgery for their tendon tears should be having their lipids tested and addressing it prior to surgery, so we can get good blood flow into that tendon. What about arthritis? Arthritis, of course, is the wearing away of the cartilage lining on the end of your bones. Well, studies show that, for example, if you have high blood pressure, you have higher rates of osteoarthritis. Why? Because the elevated pressure increases what's called intraosseous pressure, which is pressure in the bones, which then impairs blood flow getting up to the surface, to the cartilage. And your cartilage dies off because it goes into a state of hypoxia, which is a state of inadequate oxygen. That's what happens. Oh my goodness, mind blown, right? And if you look here, 2022, 2021, 2022, a lot of studies coming out just in the last year or two, demonstrating this again and again. So if you've got high blood pressure and you've got knees, you've got an opportunity, a big opportunity to change your risk. What about nerves? Turns out nerves have what are called vasonervorum. It's a fun term you can use at your next dinner party. Vasonervorum, it's the Latin, and it means blood vessels to your nerves. Well, these blood vessels that feed the nerves are literally smaller than the hair, and they wrap around and into these nerves. Well, if you impair blood flow, you get neuropathies. So we know, for example, in diabetics who have advanced glycosylation end products, which are secondary to elevated blood sugars chronically, and also on average higher blood pressures, they get neuropathies. And yet if you go on a plant-based diet, yeah, studies show that 80% of people within 3 weeks can get rid of their diabetic neuropathies. Wow, that's pretty cool. That's what the data shows. And a big part of why this improves is because of perfusion, because of blood flow. So food alters blood flow, right? Impaired blood flow alters all of these things. Not only do you decrease your risk of death, right, of the number one cause of death, which is a heart attack, but you also improve the function of all of these other aspects of your life. Correct the food, correct the perfusion, improve the function of your musculoskeletal system, and reduce your risk of dying. It's called a BOGO, a buy one, get one free. And I love it. So you can see, right, if you increase your fruit and vegetable consumption, you have a reduction in overall musculoskeletal pain and less osteoarthritis. And we know that a plant-based nutritional approach is the only intervention ever shown to reverse heart disease. Those studies by Dean Ornish and by Caldwell Esselstyn over time. So here's your perfusion plan. Eat 6 servings of raw or steamed vegetables a day. Eat 4 servings of raw fruit per day. Drink greater than 64 ounces of water or fresh green juice per day. Move. Some of you have forgotten that. You put yourselves on the shelf. You need to be exercising. I had a patient today I spoke with. It's interesting because she said, I'm very busy. I'm doing stuff all the time. I am exercising because I'm lifting bags and moving leaves and doing this. And I said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. That's like a job. What I'm talking about is therapeutic exercise. If you are not taking time to therapeutically correct your body's alignments and strength, et cetera, you're not doing what you need to do. The professional athlete, like an NFL player, an ATP tennis player, et cetera, they may be on the court playing their matches or doing their sport. That's not enough. They still need corrective and therapeutic exercise. So you need to be doing your Pilates, your swimming, your weight training, your gentle cardiovascular exercise every day. Because that movement, remember, listen to this for a minute. You can put the food on the trucks, but if the trucks don't drive down the highway, they don't deliver it. Exercise dilates your blood vessels, increases respiratory rate and also heart rate, and dilates blood vessels throughout your body because of demand. So when you sweat, what does that mean? That means you are carrying all that blood flow to the surface everywhere and to all of your organs, moving all over your body. If you are not exercising on a regular basis, you are failing to maximize the delivery of nutrition throughout your body. Very interesting stuff. Not to mention that one of the greatest preventives for cognitive decline is exercise. Not to mention that exercise is as effective as medicines for moderate depression. So we know that we need this movement as well. So those were all the positives. And then there are the removals. Get rid of the junk. If right now you have anything in your home you would be embarrassed for me to look at, then why the heck is it there? Right? If you are embarrassed that you wouldn't want to lift it up in front of everybody else on this call, why do you have it? Shouldn't be in your home. You should be absolutely comfortable, excited, proud, rejoicing in every single thing you have in your house. I jokingly say, but it's true that the least healthy thing that I have in my house are some cashews. That's pretty much it. So if you have anything that is unhealthy in your home, it's time for it to go, because if it's still there, usually means you're not serious about achieving your best health. Now, what about the next step? We talked about perfusion. There's also inflammation. And there are 3 types of inflammation I want to talk about. There's functional, there's adipose related, and there's autoimmune. Every time you and I are active, we release inflammatory molecules. I ran over and hit on my tennis court for about 25, 30 minutes before I came on the call. I ran over here at like 7:15, quickly threw on some clothes, and boom, here I am. When I was exercising, my muscle cells were releasing all kinds of inflammatory molecules, because just like a machinery, just like a factory that's making something, it is pumping out also waste products, debris, breakdown stuff. So acute exercise is a massive stressor on your body. But chronically, exercise reduces generalized inflammation, and it reduces blood pressure, and it improves cellular efficiency. Now, interestingly enough, when you look at studies, a plant-based diet can reduce the circulation and concentration of these same functional inflammatory molecules. things like leptin, CRP, right? Interleukin-6, all these go away or are reduced in concentration. So your consumption of food can alter the level of inflammation at the cellular level. We see this in studies like this. I enjoyed this one in particular, 2021, a nice meta-analysis that looked at individuals and the amount of consumption of anthocyanin-rich flavonoids, right? All these gorgeous, I've got raspberries and blueberries and some blackberries in my fridge. I've got some beets, right? I look at this, I got some red onions. You should leave thinking, what's in my fridge that matches up with these colors? Well, it turns out that the more of these foods that individuals consumed, they reduced evidence of muscle injury, which is your CK, right? Creatine kinase. They had less muscle soreness. They had less strength loss after activity, and they improved the power after exercise. For me, I noticed that when I played competitively on the low tour was, yes, exactly that. I could go longer and harder and be back on the court sooner than all my opponents. Because what I was doing after my training of 2 or 3 hours on the court in the 100-degree heat in the summer is run up to the ranch, because that's where I train on the tennis courts there, get a huge pitcher of fresh cucumber, celery, apple juice down the thing, and then have a big fruit meal. So I was bathing my cells in all this anti-inflammatory nutrition at the cellular level. The fun studies on beet juice and pomegranate juice and tart cherry juice and all this all show the same thing, that you can go longer, harder with less soreness and longer to exhaustion, which is exactly what you and I want. Even if you're not an athlete, you want this because you want to be able to hike with the kids or throw the grandkids around or work in the backyard or pick up boxes because you're moving or help the neighbor or volunteer at the local non-for-profit. These are the things you want to be able to do. But you've got to get back to the reality of that what you eat actually influences this. Too many of us continue to think that it's calories in, calories. Oh, it's just calories. I'm hardly eating anything. So I have a little piece of toast and a little banana and I'm good. But that's not going to cut it. Sure, you may not be having, kind of bacon. That's great. But having a little slice of bread and a banana is not cutting it. Your body needs these micronutrient dense foods, these deep, colorful foods at every age. And don't forget, as you and I age, our bodies become less efficient. So now they're producing more cellular inflammation. This is what I'm becoming more aware of as I age, is I've got to even be more aggressive with getting these nutrients in throughout the day. So the good news is, right, plant-based diets, studies show us that, right, they reduce indicators of inflammation. They facilitate the storage of your blood sugars. They reduce the viscosity of your blood, meaning it's less thick, and they improve the arterial flexibility. They're rich in the antioxidants. They improve your lipids. They reduce your blood pressure. It's all good news. So plant-based nutrition reduces functional inflammation. What about adipose-related inflammation? Our belly fat is not about aesthetics. People have this all wrong. They're like, well, don't judge me for my weight. I'm not. It's not about your weight. There's not like whether I like it or not. The question is whether it's healthy for you. And the reality is that if you are carrying extra belly fat on you, you have chronic inflammation throughout your body. Why? Because the belly fat is releasing adipokines. Adipokines are inflammatory molecules with weird names like adiponectin and visfatin and resistin, et cetera. These circulate through the bloodstream and they increase the risk of heart disease, spinal inflammation, arthritis, metabolic syndrome, the list goes on. So there is a factory in your belly, and that factory is pumping out all of this crud, and it is circulating through your bloodstream night and day. So you cannot wait. If you look in the mirror and you're carrying extra weight on your belly, you've got to get it off now. Like you've got to be serious. Big salads 3 times a day, fresh squeezed green juice, water, and that's it until the fat is gone. And you just get rid of it. It'll take you a couple weeks, couple months, and it's gone. And now you eat a healthy, balanced, comprehensive diet. But you cannot leave this on there. As I heard in Boston, right, I used to take care of people from Maine, and they'd come into Massachusetts General Hospital. And I remember this one guy, he kept calling on the phone all the time up to Maine, asking about the snow. And I was like, buddy, what's your deal with the snow? And he goes, well, if more than 3 feet of snow is on my house, it collapses. So I've got to get somebody on that roof right away to get it off. Now, he never sent someone up there with like a little Dixie cup, spoon, little Dixie spoon, just take a little off at a time. Oh, I'll take it off slowly. No, they get up there with a huge snow shovel, get it off quickly before it collapses the roof. If you are walking around with extra weight on your body, remember 1 pound above the waist equals 3 to 10 on each knee. 1 pound above the waist equals 3 to 10. And it doesn't matter if that fat's there because you're eating too much, almond milk and cashew butter. It's still the same fat and it's still the same pounds. 1 pound is the physics above the waist is 3 to 10 on each lower extremity joint. So you've got to be serious. You don't wait. Do not wait. Get the snow off the roof. So that increased belly fat increases the risk of osteoarthritis everywhere. Do you know that people who are obese have higher rates of hand arthritis? What? Makes no sense. People don't walk on their hands, but it does once you know about adipokines. Because now you know why they would get that. It's because it's circulating through their bloodstream and damaging their joints. People who are obese have higher rates of generalized pain. You may have seen, I'm on social media a lot on Facebook and Instagram. I put up a post the other day of an interesting article in which they looked at pain sensitivity. If you're ever on social media, I'm on at Esser Health, but pain sensitivity. And they looked at it in individuals. They'd test their pain sensitivity, and then they'd give them a single high refined sugar meal. And then they'd retest their pain sensitivity. When they had this 75 grams of refined sugar, they became more sensitive to pain afterwards. Really interesting. In addition, they compared the sensitivity of pain from lean individuals to obese individuals. And on average, those who were obese had higher rates of pain sensitivity. So they had more pain as compared to their lean counterparts. Very interesting stuff. In addition, if you're obese, you have higher rates of spinal degeneration, right? You have higher rates of dementia, heart disease, all these things. And so this adipose is toxic. The good news, if you lose the weight, the adipocytes stop producing adipokines, and check it out, you get healthier, that stuff drops. So weight loss equals reduced adipose-related inflammation. The good news, plants have the lowest calorie density. Those who consume the most plants have the lowest average BMI. In fact, vegans, even those who are eating unhealthy vegan food, on average, have 5 BMI points lower than their omnivorous counterparts. 5 BMI points. So if your obesity starts at 30, a BMI of 30, so 5 puts you down almost to regular weight, right? So you're down there at 25. So if you look at this slide right, here's vegetables, 100 calories per pound. Here's oil, 4,000 calories per pound. Gratitude to Jeff Novick, a great dietitian, ready to put this slide together back in the 90s. But really good to look at this. You should have this memorized, right? Always. You say, well, what are my goals of nutrition? Yeah. And then you think, well, then what am I going to eat? If you want to gain weight, well, you need to be eating more beans, right? More processed carbohydrates like whole wheat bread, right? Maybe some nuts and seeds. But if you've got heart disease and you are carrying extra weight, you should be eating nothing except for what's in the green, right? And that's what my program does. For 4 weeks, people eat nothing but what's in the green. Now, autoimmune inflammation. We have genetically primed individuals, right? Genetically primed individuals who get an environmental trigger, leaky gut, molecular mimicry. It's this whole little combination. I do a whole talk on just autoimmune disease. And so there's this combination. The person who's genetically primed, they alter their immune function and they have some environmental trigger. But the studies show it again and again that individuals who consume the most fruits and vegetables have the lowest rates of autoimmune disease, whether it be MS, whether it be type 1 diabetes, whether it be rheumatoid arthritis, so on and so forth. Plant-based nutrition reduces the risk of all of these. And in fact, what increases the risk? Meat, dairy. So all of these studies showing higher rates of the most common autoimmune diseases across the globe in individuals who consume the most meat and dairy. So I like this recent study, was interested, right? I love this quote. Treatment with a plant-based diet is affordable for the patient, has no adverse reactions, no contraindications. For mild cases of rheumatoid arthritis, it is the monotherapy. And for moderate to severe cases, it may serve as an adjunct, right? But the reality is powerful medicine for individuals. Plant-based eating reduces autoimmune inflammation. So we have plant-based nutrition reducing inflammation secondary to functional movement, exercise, reducing inflammation secondary to adipose tissue, and reducing secondary to autoimmune disease. So perfusion and inflammation are the foundation of your musculoskeletal health. Good blood flow, reducing inflammation. And the reality is food alters that balance. So as you begin to think about your musculoskeletal health, you should be thinking about a paradigm like this. The foundation of your musculoskeletal health is eating more colors, focused heavily on the greens, blues, purples, reds, and adding in spices, adding in some, a turmeric spice, right? And ginger, and adding in the different herbs, right? And onions and garlic, all of these reduce inflammation. And what else? Moving. And then if you're still not getting what you want, moving on to physical modalities, then into injections and surgeries. That's not a bad word, but it shouldn't be the first treatment the majority of the time, unless your bone is sticking through your skin and you can't walk. So we've got to make sure that we are using a science-based paradigm. And you should have this sort of, if you will, this pyramid for your own orthopedic health. So here are your goals. Eat those nitrate-rich and anthocyanin-rich foods, consume water, achieve that BMI and waist hip circumference as there, reduce inflammation with the nutrition as above, add in spices and supplements where needed, normalize your gut mobility, integrity really, right? Getting a good, healthy biome, so crucial. There are now studies showing that if you have a dysfunctional biome, you have higher rates of joint arthritis, right? But how do you get the gut healthy? By giving these bacteria the prebiotics, which are going to be all the high fiber foods. Maximize your muscular strength. Do not forget this. Too often people throw themselves into two camps. I do healthy nutrition and these people, I exercise. We've got to make sure we understand, remember, this is the two pillars. These are the two pillars of our best health. And we've got to make sure we're building muscle, especially as we age, to avoid excessive sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss. And then advance the interventions. Right here in Florida, I do PRP and stem cells and high-end what are called biologic injections. And I do all kinds of standard stuff as well. But you want to use them where they're appropriate. And with that, thank you very much. I'm happy to open the floor to any questions that, however we want to manage this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Esser. That is a lot of information, but very accessible in a short period of time. And being the first orthopedic specialist that we've had, these are largely things we hadn't heard before.
Yes, it is fascinating to see just how that intersection occurs. I mean, I think the concepts of high blood pressure and osteoarthritis, right? The impaired blood flow and tendon, injuries. It all makes sense once you start thinking about it, but it's fascinating just to start uncovering this information. So yes, so many reasons now for us to be eating more of these healthy foods.
I'm just going to look here to see if there are any. Don't hesitate, those of you to put questions in the chat box, or if you can take the share screen away, Dr. Esser, we can look and see if we bring up the gallery view. If you'd like to raise, there's a Zoom function on the bottom where you can raise a hand, or just or turn on your camera and raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. In the meantime, I'd like to ask a couple of questions here. The food addiction. I know that you have talked about that in the past. Could you do maybe 1 or 2 minutes on food addiction?
Sure. I think it's the secret to success. It's kind of funny that you say that, because I actually, just before I got on the call here with all of you, had just posted onto social media this photo, and I think you can see it there. It's right. It's the brain, and then it says on it where the magic starts. And the reality is, these simple things we talked about, right? These adding colors and movement, et cetera, they're so simple. In fact, they're so simple that the majority of people overlook them. Because this won't work for me, right? And I'm already eating pretty well, kind of a thing. And it's just fascinating, because we are intended to desire to feel good. And the foods that give us the most feelings of good, quote unquote, are the most calorically dense foods, the dopamine rich foods. And so all the processed foods, all the refined foods, right? These are the most addictive substances. And so the problem becomes, 1,000 years ago, they were great. They helped us survive, right? The more calorie dense food you ate, the more likely you were to survive. But now we live in a time and a place in which these foods are at every corner, right? And many of them are in our pantries or in our refrigerators or on our countertops. And as a result, it's compromising our health. It's compromising our vitality, right? At kind of every level. And so food addiction is a real problem. And I think the Alcoholics Anonymous comment really resonates here, that the first step is admitting you have a problem. And a simple way to know if you have a problem is, have you struggled with your weight? Has it gone up and down repetitively throughout your life? Do you, kind of eat mindlessly and things kind of disappear out of your kitchen? Have you struggled with a common disease process like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, et cetera? And just every time you try to, modify how you eat, you just fall apart after, a very brief period. If I bring even this topic up and it makes you uncomfortable, it probably means you're a food addict, right? So it's so important for us to kind of be aware of this. I had a period in my life, because I'm a very addictive personality, that I struggled with it, that I struggled with a desire for the things that I knew I shouldn't have, but I still wanted them because they made me feel good in the moment. And I had to redirect and realign my thought processes over months to years into this place of, what do I really want? What are my true goals? Because many of us misinterpret what the goal is that we want. We say we want to blank, and then we misinterpret that blank as feeling good. And then feeling good quickly turns into, well, eating this fast food, eating the refined foods. These are the things that make you feel good in the moment. But feeling good does not equate with being healthy. So that's the challenge, right? Because consuming a bunch of, raw spinach, chopped up with some peppers and a little balsamic vinegar on it is never going to give you the same dopamine surge as having an ice cream sundae at Dairy Queen. But that doesn't mean that the ice cream sundae at Dairy Queen is really what your body needs, wants, or is good for you. So if you're going purely based on feelings, then you get stuck, right? And so what's in the brain, what you believe, what you think, so on and so forth, becomes your reality. And so if you think, for example, I'm weak, I really want that. That's the really yummy food. And every time you talk about healthy food, you always use pejorative terms like giving up on, right? I'm not allowed to have, just salad again, so on and so forth. Well, now you are essentially cultivating this unhealthy emotional space where you're speaking poorly about the one relationship, and that's really a relationship you should be cultivating. So I tell people they should romance their food, speak lovingly about it, and gush poetic about the color of the tomato, right? And the brilliance of the lemon, and the crunchiness of the cucumber. And just by doing so, you bring a whole new level of relationship to that food. But again, if you've struggled with your weight, if you struggle with mindless eating, if even the terms or the concepts or discussing addiction makes you uncomfortable, you're probably a food addict. And if these foods are in your home and yet you shouldn't be eating them, you're a food addict. And so the reason why it's valuable to acknowledge that, what does an alcoholic have to do? They cannot be around alcohol. They cannot have any in the home. They have to be litigious in order to be successful. So if you're saying, look, I'm a food addict, and your house you've got a bunch of Dorito chips and you've got, a carton of ice cream in the freezer, et cetera, you're not being serious and you're not going to be successful. People look at me sometimes, they go, oh, Dr. Esser, you're disciplined. I could never have that discipline. I look at them, I go, are you kidding me? I don't have any discipline. I'm just smart about how I channel factor my life. If I don't have unhealthy food in the house, that means I have to get in my car, drive somewhere, pay more money, et cetera. I'm not going to do that. I'm too lazy. But if you have unhealthy food in your home, you're going to eat it, right? So you've got to make it difficult to get unhealthy food, and you've got to make it easy to get healthy food. So if you have those healthy foods you enjoy, I love pineapple. I never used to. I love fresh pineapple, chopped up. Love it, love it, love it. So as much as I can, I buy cases of pineapple, and I get them and I have them, and I peel them, I chop them, I have them in the fridge. So when I want, I'll add pineapple on my salads. I put pineapple with my fruit. I put pineapple in my smoothies. I put pineapple in my baked sweet potatoes, put pineapple on my baked rice. I mean, it's so delightful. And you're getting all that bromelain, right? Which is a potent anti-inflammatory, vitamin C, fiber, all this good stuff, and water and wonderful flavors. So identify things you really enjoy. Right? As a kid growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. We only got berries in season. I've been blessed now to have a little bit more finances. And gosh, we have berries pretty much year round, whether they're frozen or fresh in the fridge. And that's amazing to have, right? And so you should seek to have those things that are special to you, but that are health promoting in your grasp, ready for you.
Thank you so much for that. I've got a question here from Jenna. Curious about medicinal interventions. Where do medications fall on the spectrum of toxins that lead to poor blood serum?
So medications don't necessarily lead to the lipemia that we saw, right? The clogging up of arteries with the fat, et cetera. But medications can certainly alter blood flow throughout the body. Some medications dilate the blood vessels, some constrict them. So for example, a very common addictive substance, nicotine, is one of the most powerful vasoconstrictors. It makes blood vessels get smaller over time. What we're looking for in the blood vessels is a healthy opening and closing dependent upon the level of stress, the level of exercise the individual is involved with. And that is what we want. Those arteries are healthy and flexible and elastic and able to kind of respond accordingly. But we want to reduce the amount of medications we all require. You know, by the age around 60, the majority of people in America are now taking up to 8 to 12 medicines a day. And the majority of those are directly related to the health decisions they're making with their food and their movement. And so the majority of people, I can tell you, right, 80+% of people who do my program for 4 weeks get off blood pressure medicines and get off blood sugar medicines, all the oral meds. And that's the exact same for the 100 studies done by Pritikin and his whole group. Same outcomes with Ornish and Esselstyn and all the rest. It is about the food. You modify the food radically, you get radical results with the most common diseases. We still can get weird stuff, right? Weird cancers or bizarre things, but the majority of common diseases melt away.
Again, anybody who has a question, don't hesitate to put up the automatic or the Zoom hand. We've got a question here from Deborah. Can calcium spurs on the knees disappear?
Depends on where they are. If they are osteophytes inside the joint, secondary to progressive arthritis, they're unlikely to resolve. If they are calcium spurs in the tendon, what is called calcific tendonitis, then they can improve over time. And there are different treatments as well that can be done for that, different frictional massage treatments and things like barbotage, which is where we actually suck the calcium out of tendons with a needle.
In Deborah's case, I think she said they are the side.
Yeah.
That means on the side of the knee. And I've got a question, you know, going back to the food addiction, and one of the times that people really go after some of those things that are probably less healthy is when they're looking for a snack between meals. Can you spend a minute or two on what snacks you personally like and what you would recommend?
Yes. So, I mean, I love fruit and I also enjoy fresh, cold vegetables. So my snacks on average tend to circulate around those. They're easy to grab, they're simple to consume, and they give you a quick burst of yumminess. So, I mean, nice, fresh, cold, like whatever's in season is what I usually will have as some form of a snack, right? So sometimes I like to combine a few things together. So for me, I am an ectomorph. I'm a slender guy who works out a lot, and I eat nothing but plants. So I need more calories. So, and I have no history of heart disease, right? Nobody in 4 generations has died of heart disease in my family. So for me, a nice simple snack may be a quick handful of almonds with some form of bright, colorful, fresh fruit. Like if the pineapple's chopped up, I just grab quick 5 cubes of that, pop them in my mouth, walk away with a handful of almonds and chewing on them, right? And then move on with the day. You know, if I've made a big batch of fresh hummus that happens to be in the fridge, and I've got some celery sticks or cucumber wedges, you know, 2 or 3 of those, move on. You know, but usually it's something fresh and bright, grab an apple, chew it, move on. Sometimes on rare occasions, like if I've spent a couple hours on the tennis court, excuse me, or working out on the ranch, then I might have a smoothie, right? Grab a, you know, banana, spinach, berries, you know, so on and so forth, blend, drink, you know, et cetera. So it really just varies based on what's available in the home and kind of where my appetite is. When I am busy in the clinic, so historically I'd see 30 something, 40 patients a day. I didn't have a lot of chance to snack. And so that was, you know, eat my 3 meals. If I was lucky, get a lunch. Now I have a little bit more liberty in my present schedule. But yeah, but I think it's important if you're one of those people who is a busy worker, very engaged, then prepping stuff. So for example, when you're making your meal at nighttime, grab a few of those cucumbers, slice them up, right? Throw them in a container, an airtight container in the fridge, so they're ready for you to take to work the next day, or to just grab if you're, you know, in the home. But again, you've got to make this efficient. So for example, the other morning, it was a rainy morning. I didn't have any patients. I was relaxing a little bit at home, helping with some of my kids and some stuff. And what did I do? I made oatmeal balls for breakfast, but I made a large quantity of them. So that, this is like oatmeal, bananas, raisins, cinnamon, a little vanilla extract, and some applesauce. You make these balls and bake them for 17 minutes. They're delightful. And so made a ton of those. So I'd have enough for like 2 or 3 days. And as soon as those were done, I got them off the parchment paper and quickly cranked while they were in there. I was peeling and chopping sweet potatoes. So then I took those off parchment paper, threw the sweet potatoes wedges on there, threw them back in the oven at 410, set the alarm, right? And then off I went to the next task. In the meanwhile, I'd also put on black beans in an Instant Pot. So I'd have a big batch of black beans for a couple of days. So it's about efficiency. And so you've got to figure out, if you want to do this long term, you need to be efficient in what you do. Either that or you need to have a bunch of money and hire somebody to do it for you. But what you can't do is get sloppy. So if you're going to be sloppy, you're going to be eating, just kind of the plain blah. You're going to get bored. Then you're going to go start reaching for bags of chips and, dopamine, you're dopamine depleted, et cetera. Like right now, right, I can go open my fridge and I've got a huge container of sweet potatoes, all chopped and ready that are baked. I've got a big thing of black beans that are ready, the oatmeal balls, right, that were all ready. And then I've got the berries and the grapes that were in season that we got, and some bags of apples, and then cucumbers. And that, so I've got tons of options. And that's what you want to have. And does it take a little more work? Of course it takes a little more work, but that's the whole point. Everybody is fat, sick, and nearly dead in America because they're lazy and unwilling to change the behaviors. As my grandfather said in 1960, one of his addresses, which I have, is he said the majority of individuals are too much stuck in their addictions and unaccustomed to discipline. He just called it like it was. But that's not you guys. You guys are motivated. You want to be healthy. You want to be well. You want to be vital. That's why you're on this call. So now you've just got to figure out, okay, how do I put this together? So for example, do you like watching television? Great, put your TV next to the, in the kitchen, so that you have to, if you're going to watch TV, you're going to be making some food. You're going to be meal prepping. You're going to be washing some vegetables. You're going to be prepping stuff, whatever it might be. So you combine something you enjoy with something you may not enjoy that much, right? If you have your favorite music, put it on while you're doing the food. So it creates neurologically, the synapses connect across a pleasurable experience. And now it's like, oh yeah, here's my pleasurable experience, and I'm also getting something productive done. So make sure the food is in the home, and then make sure that you're prepping it so it's ready to be consumed right away.
Great. We've got about 6-7 minutes left. We have 3 questions up here. I don't know if maybe a minute each or something like that.
Yeah, I can see them. How does menopause affect your orthopedic health if you eat whole food, plant-based, no oil, no sugar? You have far fewer symptoms. You have less vasomotor responses on average. You have less of the hot flashes. You still are going to obviously have a decline in your estrogen, your circulating estrogen levels, which can lead to a decline in bone density. So you need to be conscientious of that, and you need to be really focused in on that muscle building exercises and some of the other aspects of bone health. What are your thoughts on supplements, and which do you recommend? I do a whole talk on the science of supplementation. I do not recommend supplements across the board unless you're a strict plant-based eater for more than a year. Then B12, of course, should be consumed. In addition, if your vitamin D levels are low, it's worthwhile to replete and keep them above 40 or so. And then the data is growing for, but still not concrete on omega-3s. But certainly taking 1 to 2 grams of, or 1 or 2 tablespoons of flaxseed a day, maybe a small handful of walnuts if you don't have any elevated blood cholesterol or significant heart disease. These are all ways that you can get some nice amounts of omega-3s in. Your thoughts on healthy smoothies for breakfast or a snack? They can be delightful, but you want to be aware of something. Smoothies are also a very easy way to get a lot of calories in. So if you are struggling with your weight, smoothies are not for you, not right now. If your weight is good, or like the person I saw earlier today, if your weight is too low, right, then smoothies are wonderful, because I can put 2 or 3 bananas in my Vitamix, throw in a couple handfuls of berries and greens, throw in a handful of walnuts, flaxseed or whatever. And, I like to put turmeric roots. I like to put some alfalfa sometimes in. All these things have really nice flavors, great anti-inflammatory effects, but I can drink that in about 3 minutes. That huge thing just it's gone. But if you ask me to sit and eat all of those things, chewing them, I don't know that I'd be very, very full, and it would take a long time. So you just want to be careful if your weight is elevated. Smoothies are not for you. If your weight is at a healthy place or low, then adding in a micronutrient dense smoothie for a snack or a meal is absolutely fine. Now, also be conscientious if you have elevated blood sugars. Drinking the smoothie is making the food more refined and is more likely to spike your blood sugars. If you have no blood sugar issues, then smoothie is not an issue. Some of my favorite smoothies include things like bananas, pineapples, cilantro with turmeric, really, really nice, bright green, fresh, light. Oh, so good. I think I want one right now. Protein powders, they really don't have any place in our consumption. There's not any reason, unless you are a competitive athlete or if you are struggling with weight and absorption of nutrition. Otherwise, the majority of the time you should be receiving the nutrients from your food. Now, do I play around with protein powders over the years? Have I? Absolutely, just for fun here and there. But why do we need it if we're getting adequate total calories and adequate protein consumption from our diet? So the first place you want to work on is maximizing your nutrition. And if you are unable to, for whatever reason, and you are just really low on that protein levels, protein consumption, then fine, you can bump it up by using a plant-based protein powder. But you want to avoid all of the soy isolates because they have hormonal effects, and you want to avoid, obviously, any whey protein from cow's milk because of its negative effects on cancer risk. Juicing is delightful. It is a nice way to get more micronutrients more rapidly into the cells and absorb them. It takes less effort on the part of the body to absorb it. But you want to remember that it is bypassing some of the normal mechanisms of digestion and absorption, which include putting something in your mouth and chewing it for a while. So if you're going to juice, my grandfather used to say, still sip the juice, play with it in your mouth, kind of like a fine wine, and then swallow. Don't just go gung, 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 gung. I admit I'm guilty of gung, 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 because it's just so good sometimes. I'm so thirsty. But ideally, especially if you're using the juice as a way to detoxify, et cetera, you want to really sip it and take time. We host people. We have 2 or 3 VRBOs on our property here on our Esser's Ranch. And we host people who come down for juicing. We actually have a whole house full of people starting Sunday here that will be juicing with us. They get 4 fresh juices a day, organic, fresh squeezed, and then they get massages several times a week. It's very nice and get away from the world. You can always go to esserhealth.com and you'll see on the website about that. We are cutting back on some of the offerings, but we still offer a basic package where you pay for the VRBO and then a small amount, and we stock your refrigerator with all the fruits and veggies, all organic, freshly cut and washed for you to make your own juice and just hang out and kind of detoxify. And then you get videos from me every day, et cetera, education, et cetera. It's a nice getaway from the world, kind of a little vacation time.
Oh,
yeah.
Sounds wonderful. Got one more question from me as far as bone health is concerned. What would you, maybe 30 seconds on what you recommend is the best plant-based calcium sources and how to get the best absorption as well.
Right. So all those deep green vegetables, right, are so essential. Adding in some vitamin C rich foods with those. So lemon juice on your, steamed spinach, right? Some lemon juice on your salads, et cetera. That really helps our body. That vitamin C combined, helps with iron absorption, calcium absorption from those food products themselves. I think there are lots of other foods out there like figs and various nuts and seeds that are loaded with calcium. Simply what I would do is pull up online, plant-based sources of calcium. You'll see these nice charts with how much is in each thing. And the majority of people don't have a calcium deficiency. It's very rare. It turns out calcium increases the risk of heart attacks by 15% if you take it just as plain calcium. So I discourage people in my supplements talk, we talk about this. The scientific data says that consuming calcium carbonate by itself, which is the form that calcium normally comes in pills, if you take it by itself, you increase your risk of a heart attack by 15%. Not cool at all. So you want to get your calcium from the foods you're consuming. And on average, you can also just go get your calcium checked, right? And then your serum levels. If your serum levels of calcium are normal, which the majority of people's are, unless they have a parathyroid or thyroid dysfunction, their calcium levels are totally fine. And so it's more about the vitamin D status. It's more about their thyroid function, and it's more about the bone building activities. Remember, your bone is in a constant state of dynamic change. If you put certain levels and loads and pressure on it, osteoblasts, which are the cells that form bone, increase their activity. If you don't demand from your bones, then osteoclasts take over, which are the little cells that break down bone. So it's one of those use it or lose it true phenomenon. You need to be doing at least 60% of your 1 rep max with some form of exercise in order to build bones. What does that mean? Imagine if you could, let's say, squat 100 pounds. In order to actually build bones, you've got to be doing at least 60 pounds. At least 60 pounds. So the person who says to me, oh, I'm doing exercise and they're doing little 5-pound weights on their arms, what are you doing? That's not doing anything when it comes to building bones, building the tendon. You've actually got to demand from them. So we need to start with the 5 pounds, but build up to 7.5, and then to 10, and then to 15, and then to 20, et cetera. I still have them right over there in the corner on the other side of the room here. My grandfather's steel barbells, these 25-pound barbells. And every morning in his 80s still, he would wake up, he would say his prayers, and he would then work out with these weights. And he had a decline board that he would do sit-ups, one of those classic decline, right by his bed. Why did he do that? Because he made it easy for himself to do it. The moment he'd wake up, he'd see it. It's right there. He's channel factoring himself rather than putting him out in the garage or in a separate room or whatever. He did it to immediately trigger the brain and say, aha, I need to do that today. And so it's kind of fun, but these are 25-pound weights. I mean, they're 25 in each arm, and he was doing curls with them in his 80s. So it's like when I'm doing that now and I'm like, man, I'm such a wimp. I'm in my 40s. I got to amp this up if I want to be declining down to my 25-pound weights. But that's the reality. And that's why he could lift all the boxes and tote this and do that. And, all this stuff. That's what you and I need to be doing. And you can do it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Esser.